size? What is the distance? What's it going to be like when buildings are just sort of free floating and moving? What's possible? You know, what do these Skyline things look like? How do they work? How do they sound?
How does it feel to ride them? How do we make that exciting? How do we, integrate that into gameplay?
Do we want to show that video now? We can do that. The Skyline.
Oh,
video?
the Skyline.
Oh,
favorites,
yeah. Well, is that the early album?
This is how the sausage is made here. This is like Justin J-Sonic built this with programmer art, and this is just like him hacking around and trying to make it work. This is the first thing we did is like what is it like to be on these rails? And look, it's not pretty, it's not polished, it's not anything, but this is where we start with things. You can run that video.
Let's hope it actually works.
So we start working on. So we start.
Well, when the art team gets this from JSonic, we have an absolute heart attack because
that's the part you don't see. It's like you're like, great Skylines. What am I in a fucking grain silo? I can't make a city out of this. It's absolutely ridiculous, and
and that's a challenge. It's like, so we have this game system we want to make, but for a BioShock game, Skylines need to feel like part of this city. So we talk about, because what we start talking about is like, if you have a city where you have these basically floating islands, how would people get around it? How would they move freight around it? How would they transfer things around it? I think from playing our games that we wanted, when we built Rapture, as ridiculous as it is, with these big daddies and little sisters walking around and all these splicers running around, we wanted to feel like it's a place that was believable in its own context and within the rule set we had. And so, we start talking about, we know we wanted these Skylines from a gameplay standpoint. It's like, how would they work in the city? So we started doing things like, they would probably they'd probably transport, cargo around on these things. So we started putting lines where you can see these cargo containers hanging from them. We want to feel like there's places that people are actually using these things within the city, because sometimes there's no other way to get around in a city that's structured like this. And so it's really important to us that it not feel like, a Ratchet and Clank thing, which is, and when you start with prototype like that, you see something that's very cool from a gameplay perspective, and you can start to see the possibilities of fighting on those things and jumping off and shooting things. But we then have to make sure it feels part of Columbia and integrated into Columbia.
It needs to tell a story. Why are they there?
Yep.
They're not just these designer drawn out splines. Like, they have to either be there for transportation or there for the cargo, like Ken says. Do we have the video of the straight line?
I can go dig it up. I can go dig it up if you want to look at that.
We have it.
I think that, this is a good evolution to show, like, when Justin comes to us with that map and it's pure design and it's pure jumping around and navigating, then it comes to the art team and we have to think about, like, how do we make this fun and how do we make it visceral?
And believable.
Like, how do you make you feel like when you're on this thing, it's dangerous and, you're holding on by the seat of your pants. So this previs coming up will be like our first attempt at showing that. Quick
Sean put that together, and we were like, oh yeah, we can do this. This will be amazing.
And if you think about that, so much of that is like, it's the same thing, but it's aesthetic and the sound effect. Like we work with the sound, like this is like being on a roller coaster, but you're hanging in midair and you've got a fucking gun. And so the sound effects of the wind coming by you and the thing shaking. I mean, if you've ever been on like an old like turn of the century wooden roller coaster, there's nothing like it. And so that was where we started, and making it feel visceral and making it feel real. And look, we're still figuring out some of this and making and making it work and controlling right. But that's we have a term we call player RAM at the that we use called player RAM, which is like how much can the player keep in his head and without like his brain exploding. And the Skylines are really challenging because it's so visceral and there's so much going on. And so our challenge right now is like we have this huge level of excitement. It's now getting it in within player RAM so people can actually play it and master it and feel really powerful on it. And that's what we're doing now.